You have choice. You have always had choice. What change can we be today? What action can we take to create a future of greater possibilities? Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast with your host, Simone Milasas. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast. Yes, you're with me. And yes, it's another podcast I'm recording in hotel quarantine. It's called Utilizing Your Time to Your Advantage, is what I'm saying. So, and if you are listening to us, don't forget you can flick over and you can actually see our beautiful, bright, shining faces on YouTube as well now. So today I have Miss Megan Hill. Thank you for being here, Megan.
Thanks for having me, Simone. Thanks for letting me join your quarantine party.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's like, yeah, I'm bringing in a lot of crew there to entertain me. So, although, you know what, I've always been very good at entertaining myself, and I am really good at entertaining myself, but I'm very grateful and honored that I have so many people like yourself that, that I get to play with.
Yeah.
So, as we started this, like the road that I want to go down here with you is engaging with people in a different way, and you have this, I'm going to say, like, you have this idiosyncratic way of looking at how to get something out there in the world, and marketing, we use that word that this reality knows so well. And I just want to tell a little story because we were talking about this the other day. uh, I think actually when I first met you, you were pregnant. Like if I remember correctly, it was at a bar. I know that sounds bad. Megan was at a bar drinking, but doing shots. No, she wasn't. She was. It was at a bar because we had this sort of like gathering, this social gathering before we were doing this access class in, I think it was Denver or Colorado Springs or somewhere in Colorado.
Yeah.
And anyone who was going to the class, you could go to this bar and have a drink and meet people who were coming to the class. It was a great idea. The woman who was hosting the class at the time was a really good socializer and had that energy of interacting and engaging. I think that was the first time I ever met you. Big belly.
Yep, I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
When
And
you're pregnant and after you have a kid, everything's a little bit blurry.
right. Well, yeah, because you were very pregnant,
Yeah.
like when I met you.
I was very pregnant.
Yeah, you were very pregnant. Big belly. Not from beer. And you were also previously, before having your beautiful baby boy Tristan, you worked in marketing. And so where did you work? Like, what was not necessarily the company, but what was the energy like, or was it corporate world? Like, where was that
Yep.
from?
So I worked straight up in advertising agencies. So I started out on, I don't even know if people know this, but when you hire an advertising agency, you get your creative directors and you get the people doing all of the creative stuff. And then you have basically your main contact, as if you're a client hiring someone, is what's called account service. So that's where I started. I started out as an assistant, and like within 5 years I was a manager, and then I decided to leave that company and went to a big agency with big budgets. Like in advertising, it's all about how big your budget is, so it's like I started out small, like less than $1 million to play with. And then when I went to my big client, or my big agency, we had like $10 million budgets. And that's when you're doing things like, Times Square ads, and Rihanna was a part of it. Like, you have all of this, you have more money to play with, and you have, supposedly you get more, you get like the cream of the crop from the creative standpoint. But spoiler alert, I found that across the board, I worked with some of the most creative people, and it didn't matter the budget size. It was actually, you could find
Yeah.
anywhere.
I'd like to break that down a bit later in
Yeah.
the show, because that's it, immediately what came up for me is it's sort of like, oh, I've got a lot of money to spend, let's spend it, rather than is the money actually required to create what it is you'd like to
Yeah.
actualize in the world. So, and then when we went out and had dinner or something like that at one of those really dodgy American restaurants in Colorado
Well,
Springs. What
I
was
was
it?
I was in advertising, and that's actually when I found access, because advertising is it's super fast paced. You can get fired really fast, you can get hired really fast, you can lose a client really, like the pace I loved, but it was also so stressful. And I was having really intense like anxiety attacks. So even before I was pregnant, I found access consciousness to help me basically stay sane in a world that was just like, there's a lot of
So how
drinking.
did you find access, and what was the tools that sort of helped
I
you?
found, well, I'm from a very, I call them like witches. All my aunts are like, I call them witches. They've done all sorts of like metaphysical crazy stuff.
Right.
So my whole life, I mean, I had like crystal things that going on at my house and Thanksgiving, like there was just the craziest stuff always going on. So I actually heard about it one Thanksgiving. My aunt was telling me, this was before Access was big and before it was anywhere. And she said she found it, and it's this thing that they do on horses, but now they do it on people, and it's the bars. But it was like somehow the animal work got, misconstrued in the whole thing, but the bars. And she was telling me about it, and I had done this crazy meditation workshop, and I was like, I think I need you to run the bars on me. And I was like, just really looking for something else. I've talked about it before on many interviews, where I was basically taking um, anxiety medication to stay sane. I had Xanax in case I had a panic attack. I had sleeping medication in case basically I had all sorts of medication to keep me comfortably numb but speedy at the same time. So,
Comfortably numb and speedy. Wow. Yeah.
so when I found, like, I was 25, 26 or something, and realized that I was working with people who, this is how they were living their life. I was looking up to people who were probably in their like 50s and making lots of money and being really successful, but they were heavily medicated and like the whole thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot live like this. And that was when I really looked for what else was out there. And I found Access Bars, which gave me I actually found Access Consciousness because my spiritual intuitive that I called all the time for, advice on my love life. And I was like, I'm sure that I'm going crazy, but can you just tell me, like, am I ever going to meet a guy, or like what, I'd always call her like for some spiritual perspective on my life. And but she asked me a question. She said, this is going to sound crazy, but you're living in an apartment, you're in a city. What if 98% of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions don't actually belong to you? So that's how I found Access. And then it kind of trickled down that there was the bars, got my bars run. And I was running bars on people in the agency that I was working at when they were having like freakouts. So,
And did they receive it? Like, did it help?
yeah, yeah,
That's really cool. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that. So obviously your spiritual advisor knew New Access tools,
She was
because
an
that's an
access
Access
facilitator.
tool.
She was an
Yeah.
access facilitator. Yeah.
Right.
She was
And the tool that
Anne
Megan is referring
Westfall.
to. So say it
Anne,
again.
her name was Anne Westfall. I don't know if you remember her. She still does all sorts of stuff and loves Access, but she was my first facilitator, and I did foundation and all of the stuff with her. So
Yeah. And I don't want to sort of like just swipe over that tool that you gave out, because it's a really
yeah,
cool tool. Is when she said to you, you live in the middle of a city in an apartment. So what if all those thoughts, feelings, and emotions, are not yours? And it's a tool that we use in Access, and it's literally, who does this belong to? There's actually an app that Dane here put out, and we'll put it in the show notes. Who does this belong to? And you can set it up like to go off on the app, like, if you want to send yourself crazy every minute, every 5 minutes, or every hour, or every day, or every week, or whatever it is you desire to choose. And interesting, I live in a house. I live in a house. There you go. That's it. Boom. Mic drop. No, I live in a house across the road from the beach, and I'm surrounded by a lot of nature, and there's not a lot of people. Even in Australia, there's 25 million people in the whole country. But at the moment, in hotel quarantine, I'm surrounded by buildings, and I'm finding it really loud. Like,
yeah.
not noise loud, but just loud. Like, you can hear people's heads. And I noticed, it's a Wednesday here today. I noticed last weekend, I woke up on Saturday morning and I went, oh, this feels really nice. And it was like, there's apartments like right across from me. And, I could see people doing their washing, playing with their kids and stuff like that. But all of a sudden there was this silence, and there was this space, because everybody wasn't in the offices. And I've also got to say, the Friday night, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday afternoon here, and days are sort of like irrelevant here, except that I've got an appointment. And I noticed I was like, oof, nice glass of cold wine would be
Yeah.
nice, you know. And then I went, oh, it's Friday afternoon in the city. Everyone is at work going, oh, a drink would be great, you know.
Yep.
And actually interesting because you can't, if you're in quarantine, you can't just go, oh, a drink would be nice. You have to organize yourself. You can order some alcohol in the hotel, but it has to be done by 11 and then you get it delivered between 3 and 5. So it's sort of like this spontaneity of like, a glass of wine would be nice, you know.
Right.
So I ended up ordering some wine from a place called Dan Murphy's in Australia. They delivered in 20 minutes at 9:30 a.m. in the morning, and I was like, "Damn, that's good." So that I can have some cold wine here. So it's in the fridge. I had actually some yesterday, but then I have the choice. But it was interesting for me to recognize, oh, it's Friday afternoon, and then having that space of the Saturday, Sunday in the city. So really, guys, please use that tool. It doesn't matter if you have got 5 people around you, one person, or 500, or 5,000, or 500,000. It's like you do pick up on those thoughts, feelings, and emotions of others, and ask, who does this belong to? Like, is it yours? Because you, as an infinite being, which we talk about so much in Access Consciousness and on my podcast, you are an infinite being. It's like, you know, you have infinite possibilities. So you are way more psychic than what you've been willing to acknowledge. So you pick up on that. So use that tool. Who does this belong to? And is this mine? And like I said, check out the app as well, because and it's got some humor in the app too, which I always appreciate.
A funny story is when I was working at this agency, when I got this tool, I wrote it on a I wrote it on a post-it note and I put it on my computer, like, you know, on my laptop thing on my desk. And I had the tech guy tech guy come help me with something, and he goes, do you not know whose computer this is?
Oh, that's great.
Like, no, it's my computer. It's just a question that I've been asking. He was just like, okay, fine.
Oh, that is hilarious. That is so funny. I love that. He's like, God, you are blonde. Well, it's an odd question too, though, and it's like actually it's the first tool that I ever came across because I was at a Mind, Body, and Spirit festival in Brisbane, and I was walking around this festival, and this really cute guy, I was definitely being shallow, like had this bowl and of all these different pieces of paper, and he looked at me and he goes, "Would you like to pull a question out of this bowl?" And I was sort of like, "You're cute, you know, pull this question out."
Okay.
Yeah, okay then, you know, and it said, who does this belong to? And he goes, oh, you got who does this belong to? And I looked at him like he was an idiot. I was just like, what the fuck? Like what sort of question is this? And I mean, I was so resistant and so, you know, like I guess angry when I first came along as well. Like just angry at the world or angry at me or angry what I wasn't choosing is what I would probably look at now.
Yeah.
So he started to explain this question to me, and I still was looking at him like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Because it is a really, you know, interesting thing to grasp that what is going on in my head might not be mine, you
Yeah.
know. And interesting being in hotel quarantine too, because um, I've noticed like the first night I stayed here, I dreamt of quarantine and suicide all night. Not me suicide, but suicide, just random suicide. And I was like, wow, what is going on in people's heads here? So I've actually been, you know, playing access consciousness classes and clearings and stuff like that in this hotel and sort of like expanding that energy out so that I can tap into everyone here. And if they are desirous of receiving that, then, you know, contribute to them as well, because a different reality is possible.
Yeah.
So, different reality is possible. And then, you know, fast forward, I went and had dinner with Megan one night because we were looking for something to add to Access as well. And um, I, you know, spoke to her about the possibilities and what she could, you know, and she was just like, dun, 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 like all these brilliant ideas, you know, about how to get Access consciousness out there into the world. And from a different energy, like not from what I noticed straight away, it wasn't from this is what you must do, like go get a billboard, like go do this, even though that's the industry you're involved in. It wasn't, I mean, I remember Gary Douglas years ago met with this major Los Angeles marketing firm, and they said they did Tony Robbins, and they said to him, okay, we've spoken to you, yes, we'll take you on as a client. There's a few things that we need to stipulate, and one of them is you cannot change your material for 5 years. And Gary looked at them and went, well, we're done. That's not going to work because access changes every day. I mean, every single person who shows up has a different awareness and creates something different showing up. That's what I love about it. That's why I've been here for over 20 years. And I remember he was like, we need to get the Access like name written on all these M&Ms, and that's what we can pass out. And Gary was like, what the fuck? Like, why is having Access written on an M&M gonna, create change in the world? So people always try and put this reality and a spin on it, and you didn't. And I don't exactly remember specifically what we spoke about, but I remember the energy. And I remember going back to Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, and I went, she's great. And I was like, but I don't think we can afford her, And then we ended up talking again because it's like we couldn't afford you at that stage. We couldn't offer you what you had been paid or more, which is how this reality would usually work. Oh, we're pulling you from here. Let's offer you more, and we
Right.
couldn't. So then I remember we had, a bit of a conversation, blah blah blah, and you ended up. What? How did you choose this? Your version of
Well,
the
I
story.
had I had been, Access is so brilliant at finding people. You find it and it finds you at the same time in this crazy way. And
Perfect. Yeah.
when I found it, I was really looking at, I loved my job. I loved marketing. Like I loved whatever that is that I don't even know how I know what I know about stuff, but I loved playing with it. And after, I think I'd been doing it for probably like 8 years, and I just was so tired of the hustle and you get hit pretty hard with what clients want, that your creativity feels like, choked, and like there's all this stuff that goes into it, and you lose your free, like it's all this stuff, working in a corporate setting, 9 to 5, whatever, you're pretty much working all the time anyway. But I was pregnant and I remember being like, okay, if I, one of the tools in Access, like if you could create anything as your life, what would it be? And I started really like unraveling what I thought I had to have as a career and a life and all the stuff, because I was setting myself up for that and finding myself extremely unhappy in having all of the things that you're supposed to have. So I became a facilitator when I was 8 months pregnant, because I knew if I didn't do it then I would probably, have a baby. And how do you get to facilitator training with an
Right.
infant? And then right after I had him, I actually, when I was pregnant, I was facilitating bars classes. Like I had huge bars classes, and I would have this big belly, and I was having so much fun facilitating. So after I had him, I was like playing with not going back to work. And that was when I had met you, but I pinged you again, and it was still kind of this weird, you know. I remember actually like not getting the job with Access and being like, damn it. And I was like, oh, I can't. I know that I like to have money. I like to create. And I remember having this moment of like, universe, like, how could this be? Like this is everything I've ever desired. And it was a no. And I was like, oh, and I remember just being like, I went to a job interview in Denver because I was living somewhere else. I wanted to move to Denver, and I was so close to getting the job, and I knew I would hate it. And I went to a 3-day body class, and the facilitator, I asked about the job, and she said, so I said, do you think I'm going to get it? And I was like doing this dance of like, I don't know if I should take it and blah, blah, blah. And she goes, well, do you really want the job? And I was like, no. And the job was gone in a second. They called me like the next day, and they're like, we actually gave it to somebody else. And I'm like, no, like here I am,
I'll
like,
pretend to be upset.
I think I had like a month left on maternity leave and was just really trying to find something. And I just kind of like eased into it, and kept asking the universe, and having like even like fu moments with the universe, and like, dear God, please, like all those things when you're really like asking for something but you're not sure what it's going to turn out like. And I remember Katarina Wallentin called me. She works with, with Access and with Dane. And she's like, I know that we didn't hire you for this other thing because it's not really working right now, but would you be up for doing social media, and we could pay you this? And I was like, yes, I'll do anything. Like I will literally do anything. And social media at that time was like barely, it was like just, I was like, social, oh, that's so easy. Like it's
It was,
just,
it was Facebook.
it was Facebook, pretty much. It was Facebook and Twitter and Facebook. Like, yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that's so easy. And if you like, just get me in the door and I will show you, like, because I could see the possibilities, it's like,
Yeah.
I loved
Yeah.
Access so much. And I was like, oh, I would see things and be like, oh my God, please just let me contribute to this because it could be so much bigger. And so I did. And I just started like, okay, I know you hired me for social media, but can I play with the graphics and can I play with the shop stuff? Like I was just like, can I just start playing in all these other places? Because social media was actually a great place to, I had a need, you know what I mean? Like I could work with different things to get social media, have things out there in a different way. So that's how it started. And I
And
just
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, with every company I've ever worked with, I always want to learn how they do business, because it's like you can do advertising all day long the right way or whatever, but every company is so different. And so that's when I was like, I'd meet with you and I was like, how do you guys do events? Like how does the business work? Because
Hmm.
without that, it's really hard to know how to kind of contribute and also have these ebbs and flows of energies to ultimately you want to still be able to create revenue. It's like, okay, where are you able to create revenue and where can I contribute to that, and then also help see how that can, it might be that I'm doing social media and doing something that doesn't seem like it's contributing directly to some revenue stream, but it allowed me to see the whole picture, which was really fun. And it's the wildest, most wonderful company on the planet, and you never get bored and it changes all the time and it keeps you on your toes, and you definitely cannot keep any branding elements in place because it changes. So
Yeah. So I just want to go over a couple of things here because I'm really grateful that we sort of spoke about like how you showed up and how you contributed and created, and you're a major contribution with Access Consciousness now, and like you said, things have changed a lot over the years. And what I'd like people to get that have just listened to this too is Megan wasn't making it about money. It's like she wasn't making it about money. That was how she chose her life or what she chose with her life. And I'd like you guys all to recognize that if you actually desire to change something, which I love it, is the name of the podcast, Choice, Change and Action. If you desire to change something, you got to start looking at what you're currently choosing and what you could choose, but what action you could take. And I'm going to add something else in here too. I love the way you spoke about, I mean, yes, you just had a baby and you were in maternity leave, so I'm sure you were super busy, but you also gave yourself the space to sort of play and extrapolate with like, oh, okay, so what would I like this to be? And I love the fact that you were looking at, okay, so here's these people in their 50s who are working in this industry that you actually enjoy. You enjoy the play, you enjoy the extrapolation, you enjoy, the creation and the choices that you have with it, but going, oh, but that's actually, I don't want it to be like that. I don't want to be this stressed. I don't want to be popping these pills or doing all of that. So it is looking at like sort of breaking down your life, not judging it, but breaking down your life and having a look at, okay, so what am I choosing that's working for me and what am I choosing that's not working for me, and then what is it that I could choose and what action can I take that would allow that to show up or get me even just a few steps closer. Because if you look at this now, it's like in your position, quote unquote, in Access Consciousness, it's like we weren't addressing that right at the beginning. It was like, and like you said, you got your foot in the door by Facebook, and it's like that was the only social media. But now, and you said, can I play with this? Can I play with this? Can I play with this? That's how life shows up, and that's how you can also increase your business, is by looking at, oh, what can I play with today? Like, what can I choose today? I mean, even when I originally started doing this podcast, and I did a podcast quite a few years ago, and it was called The Art and Industry of Business and Living. And it was out there, did it for a few years, getting lots of subscribers, doing all of that. And then I was like, I'm bored, I'm done. And it was like, I didn't want to call it The Art and Industry of Business and Living anymore. I wanted something different that I could play with any topic. So, and it was funny because people were like, well, you can't give up this podcast because you've just built up all these subscribers. And I was like, I don't care. It's like they can move over to this new one or they can go away. It's like, I need to choose something that's working for me, that matches the energy of what it is that I would like to be in the world and what it is that I'd like to get out in the world. So then here we are, Choice, Change and Action, podcast. And now I also have like Choice, Change and Action membership and this whole lot of thing. It's built from that. But it's like keep playing in this playground of possibilities, but like go, oh, this one, I haven't tried this, let's do that. I haven't tried this, let's do that. And allow yourself to stumble and fall, and then go, okay, brush your knees off and go, what next? Like, what else is possible? So with that, and thank you, with that, and with your engagement with how you perceive things. And I love the way you said looking at every business and seeing the difference that it is and what does it want to create, and that flirtation that you have with marketing and engaging with people. Can you, or engaging with everything, not just people, can you talk about some of the tools that people can start to use that allows their business to engage with the world that matches the energy of what it is that they're asking for?
Sure. So the flirtation topic came. I had asked Gary Douglas for a title. I was like, is there, or no, I think I had asked him for something. And he randomly, as he does, was like in a class one day and just shouted out, Megan, that's the class you need to do. And he had said, marketing is the flirtation of possibilities into reality. And it's one of those classes where every time I do it, I get more information about, what that means. And so many people go to like, what is flirtation? And it's, oh, you need to like, they go to the flirty thing. And I was thinking about it in the shower as I do, because I know I was going to talk to you, because I keep looking at this energy and it's always different, because everyone has a different sense of what flirtation is. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, it's actually really like playing with what you have. It's like if you take just the act of flirting and you walk into a bar or wherever and it's like you have your eyes are your thing, use that, or if whatever, you're tall and whatever you're like, whatever it is, like use everything that you have to get whatever it is that you want, you know? And so with a business, it's the same thing. Like, what do you have that's different? What do you have that will make people notice you? What do you have that you're not acknowledging that is like the brightest, shiniest thing about your business or about you, that you think because it's you, it's like no big deal, but that's actually the most seductive thing about you, because it's that difference that is like, huh? Like, what's that? It catches people in the moment. Um, so with every project, with every whatever, this could be your business, this could be a class, this could be a book. What is it that is pinging at you? And it's like you said, like you were doing the podcast before, and it's like that was great for the time, and then something else was required. And so to be able to change in the moment and change on the dime and know that you can keep running with it, that's so I think that like any person who says you shouldn't do that because of blah 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 blah, like that's not marketing. That's like business. This reality, just change and see what else you have, and you can
Yeah.
always use what you've done in the past to contribute to it. But be willing to constantly be different,
So
especially now.
how much do you get people, yeah, especially now, how much do you get people actually have to acknowledge either themselves, their products, their service, their business, before choosing that? Like what part of acknowledgement comes in with that?
I think it's like as you go. I mean, for you, what have you noticed about, you started out with joy of business and that was like your thing, and you loved it and you could talk about business and you could talk about money. And I recently heard you say like, oh, now I love talking about bodies and um, choice and all this stuff. But it's like, as you change and grow, you have new things that
Mm.
you have to offer.
Do you know, it's interesting though, I did this interview and it's on my YouTube. It's based on someone was interviewing me on the Joy Business book. And I wrote that book like, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago. And it's now translated, I think, into, about 15 languages or something like that. And we're doing audio in many languages and all of that. And I did this interview last Sunday, like a few days ago. And there was this moment right at the end where she was because she was asking me questions on the book, and right at the end, and she read this line that I had written in the book, you know, that said at the end, "What if you never made a mistake?" And the way she received it and the way she read it, and I was like, "Oh, I wrote that." There was this moment that I went, "Shit, that book's actually really good," like. And I was like, wow. And I was talking to Dane this morning going, I think it's taken me 15 years to go, that's actually a really good book and it's contributed to people. And what I noticed is me acknowledging that and going, damn, that's great. If I can do that, then what else can I do, sort of thing. And also, if I'm finally acknowledging it the way I acknowledged it on Sunday, then how much bigger can that get and how many more people can know that joy business exists which more matches the energy of what I'd like to, to have in the world and see in the world and have people choose in the world. Like, how much have I been, not purposely, but energetically holding it back based on not acknowledging the greatness of what I created?
Yeah. And also it's kind of that whole thing of like when it finds you and you find it, and it's this wonderful thing, because how much is it that you were 15 years ahead of the, like in the future, and now people can hear it in a really, you know, in a way that maybe they couldn't hear it 5 years ago.
Yeah, I know. I got this email a couple of days ago from this lady who she's doing the German audio for it, and she hired this studio, and she's gone into the studio to do the recording of it. And this technician who's never heard of Access Consciousness, never heard of Joy Business, and she said she went in the first day and recorded half the book, and then went in the next day. And he said, I got to tell you, he said, I can't stop thinking about this book. And I was really excited that you were coming in today again to finish off the book. And he was like, I've never heard anything like this before. He said, but it's also, it's tapping into everything that I know. And I was like, brilliant, that's what it should be. And it was like, I love that what you can create gets out there to the most random of people. And it's like, you can't put a marketing budget on something like that,
No.
you know? So can you talk a little bit about how, I mean, I love when you said like $1 million was your small budget, and I was like, oh, I had a little bit of a inside, but I didn't show it on my face. And then you're going into the 10 million and it's like, holy shit. And it's
Yeah.
like, so what? And then when people go, oh, well, see, I don't have that much money. I could never get my brand right out there, blah, blah, blah. What are some of the tools or the ways that you could, give to people just to even start, not thinking you don't have to have this $10 million or this $1 million?
Well, what I learned early on, and I learned this when I was so grateful for the first company that I worked with, because how I got to see how I got to see how different budget levels worked. Like there were some accounts that had like, I think they had like $30,000. And I was like, thank God I'm not on that one. I pretty much, like, but those people had then like, those account representatives had, I think like 20 accounts because the budgets were so small. And I had, like 4 or 5 because I had bigger budgets and more things going on. But what I started noticing was is it, the base of like the creative material, like if you're creating an invitation or you're creating a video or you're creating whatever, those were all pretty much within the same like realm. And the thing that cost the most money was to get it out to more people, whether it was you increased your mailing list or you instead of going to this TV market, you could go national, and that means you'd spend whatever $10,000 instead of $2,000, or you could run a full page ad in a big huge magazine with full color. And this is all like, again, kind of old school advertising back then.
So if you're a millennial now, it's
I'm
like you're
dating
going, what
myself.
does full page advertising mean?
Yeah, it might be making a comeback, you never know. um but I just noticed like you could just play bigger, but everything that you had to get the results, because I worked in an industry that was sales driven as well, was pretty much the same. So I also would start stealing. So there would be people that if I had like, okay, I only have like $10,000 for this event, and this other person had like all this money, but her account was in, Florida, and I was working with somebody in Seattle, Washington, which, if you don't know the United States, those are two totally different sides of the US. No way the same person's going to get that mailing invitation. So I would just steal it, and I wouldn't have to then pay for the design that went into it, all the stuff. I just have the hard cost of printing. So I was just like doing this all over the place, and people are like, you can't, like, they were like, that's not creative or whatever. I'm like, no, it's smart. Like, why would
It
I
is creative, actually.
like, why would I spend $10,000 to have this specially folded brand new thing that somebody in Seattle, it's just fine, it's gonna work. And it did. And I started like having so much fun with playing with the different budgets that I then would have more money to actually do a big TV ad or something. You know what I mean? Like I just started looking at how to play with what I had. But that's when I started realizing, like, you could have all the money in the world, but if you aren't looking at, the creative ways of using it, then you're just like throwing money at the wind pretty much. And that's what I
Yeah.
saw when I went to the bigger like clients, when there was $10 million and blah 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 blah. And you know, it just is what it is. But I have a funny story, which I just love it. The account that I had, it was working with Barbados tourism. So the whole thing is getting more people to visit Barbados. And they had like $10 million. And a lot of that money comes from, you know, the country itself. And they were just, you know, Caribbean ways. And they were like, we're just this year, we're going to give $5 million of that to Rihanna for her to be our spokesperson. And I was like, and everyone freaked out because that is like so much money that gets taken from like all these other things. And at the time, Rihanna was, she was not very well received in the press. I think she was like having dating troubles with rapper, you know, she was just like this bad girl and had just come out, but she was, you know, famous. And we put her on Times Square with Barbados, like, and all this stuff. And I remember having this conversation with Gary Douglas, because he has helped me so many times see the possibility, or like, you know what I mean? Like kind of flip that thing that is not, well, I would go like, I learned that in marketing, so that's the way that it should be. So I was like, they shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have put all this, you know, money into, you know, whatever. Her clientele doesn't even have the money to go to Barbados, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, yeah, but they did that because in the future, they would have the money to go there. And I was like, holy shit. And now Rihanna is like one of the most, like, I don't know if you, I love her now.
I know who Rihanna is, yeah.
But she has like this phenomenal lingerie line. She's like out creating Victoria's Secret with her lingerie brand. She is just like dynamite. And now the people that, you know, are watching her and everything, like they do have the money to travel to Barbados. Like it was, the way that Gary saw that was so brilliant. And I was like, okay, I need to start looking at what you can spend money on now that doesn't necessarily make sense, but will create a future that nobody can even perceive.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. And it's interesting because I have an interesting story of when I lived in California for a while. And one of the businesses that I had, like one of the businesses I had before Access, was called Good Vibes for You. And I had it for quite a few years when I was working with Access, and we took it to the US, and you know we had bottled water, like you know in
I see it everywhere now. I see
what's
good
that?
vibes. I see good vibes.
Really? Oh,
Every,
Good Vibes, the words. I know. I saw the movie the other night, and I was like, dude, I created that so many years ago. Like it's probably 27, 28 years ago, maybe even 29, 30 years ago that I actually created that company.
yeah.
Anyway, we took it to the US as well, and you know we were building it up, and you know we were getting a bit of a following in California, and I had a business partner in Texas and everything, and then she had more money, right? And so she went and put up a big, you know, billboard in Times Square, Good Vibes for You in Times Square. But I love that you just said that to me, because my point of view was always like, why the fuck would you put a big Good Vibes for You sign in Times Square when we have no distribution in New York? Like someone can see it, but they can't buy it. And I was like, that makes absolutely no sense to me. I'm not saying that she was creating for the future, but I had never looked at it like that.
Yeah.
Like, what can you place here now that people start to see that is actually creating a future? To me, I was just like $10,000 on a billboard in New York. Do you know what I could do with that $10,000?
Yeah.
You know, with this business. But I hadn't looked at it like that. So what I'm going to say to everybody listening too is, what if you came out of the conclusions that you have and that conclusionary reality and stop looking for the result that you think is going to create greater, and allow yourself to truly be in question and ask, it's like, you know, truth, will this contribute to the business? Truth, will this contribute to the brand? Or, you know, whatever it is, and allow yourself that space, and allow the business the space to actually show you what that could be.
And
I
it
love
may,
that.
and for the times when it seems like, I am always like, that is crazy. I can't believe we would do that. And seeing, because it's that weird thing that's like been in my brain from being in advertising, you know, like that's not a good investment of your money. um, to see what Gary chooses, what you have chosen, what Dane has chosen. Like, remember the Being You bus in Australia? I was like, that is
Yeah.
crazy. And it created a future, you know, and they,
Yeah.
like, you guys choose, like, and I learned so much when I came to work, because you guys, when I came to work with you guys, there was no such thing as an advertising budget. It was like, well, what would you like
Oh
to
God,
pay
no.
us? And I was like, what? And And that's so fun. And it also is like, it doesn't mean it's a yes every time. It doesn't mean you're going to go do buses in every city. It's like at that time with that space, it was a yes. And there's several things that, like lots of things actually, that have been chosen like that with, in the time that I've gotten to create and play with Access. And it's like the ones that are like, why would we like, it's always this like huge creation that was just fun for the fun of it, and who cares if it creates a result, but it's fun, let's do it.
Yeah, and the way I would look at that too is, and the way I refer to it is, I get this ping.
Yeah.
Like when something pings you, it's like, if something pings you, it's like, what if you didn't go to the budget and didn't go to the pros and the cons, or the right and the wrong, or try and figure out if the future of this. It's like, if it pings, what if you literally just ask a question and go, okay, so true, yes or no? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, recently we've got the Antique Guild in Brisbane, two shops, and we, during COVID, as one does, we spent all this money buying a friggin' warehouse and moved everything there, and then everything went into lockdown. It was like, that's an interesting choice. So anyway, last year, at the end of last year, Chris was like, I'm going to get some billboards done in Brisbane. So just in this city, that's where the shop is, and did these beautiful, elegant billboards with very minimal copy, can I say?
Yeah.
And we got, like, within a day, we had people showing up at the shops, the Antique Guild, especially the warehouse, like coming to check out the antiques, and or go to the website and ringing it up and looking at it. But it was literally just from this ping, not from, okay, I'm going to put these billboards up that cost X amount of money, so then we have to bring in this amount of money. Like, what if your marketing, you're engaging with the world, is not linear?
Yeah.
What if it's more based on energetically, like what that contribution can be, and what is how I would address that. Anything that you want to add with that?
Absolutely. I think you said it beautifully. And what I keep seeing now is those types of things are, when I said like old school advertising might make a comeback, I think it actually might, because people have put so much into online everything that I get that they're a little fried, it's like, but seeing a beautiful billboard that catches them when they're driving is like, they haven't seen that in a while, because hardly anyone's putting that much money into billboard advertising or direct mail or any of that old stuff. They're putting it all into social media marketing and online clicks and blah, 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 funnels and all this sorts of stuff. But if you take this moment to be like, oh, okay, so everyone's here, where could I go that would create something different? Billboard, phone call. Mailing is a little difficult right now since everything's like backed up, but what else is possible? But you know what I mean? Like that difference that is, because marketing is truly like about catching someone's attention when they're, when they're looking for something. And you never, like, if you just put it all in one place, or you do the same thing all the time, like that's just got this kind of repetitive thing, rather than look at, okay, what's like, pull your head out of the computer and like look around the world and look at what else, where else can I be, or where else can I interact with people and engage with people that I haven't considered,
And I love that when you talk about the flirtation as well, because it's it's like a batting your eyelids at someone, basically.
Yeah.
It's like, doing that look and then looking away. It's like, that flirting. And as you were saying, I remember years ago, I did for Christmas, with Joy Business, all the clients that I had, anyone who'd come to a class, we sent them a Christmas card, handwritten Christmas card, hand wrote the address on
from
the
Australia.
Yeah, from Australia. Yeah.
So I was in the US and I got a mail from Australia, which is like, what?
And so what happened for you when you got that? Because that was years ago.
I just couldn't believe that you took the time to actually do that. And I know how much it costs to send mail all over the world. It's like all these things. And I was like, wow, I knew that it took time. Like it actually took this energy, like it was a contribution from you, even if it wasn't, do you know what I mean? Like sending an email is just like, that takes 2 seconds. I knew to handwrite it, put it in the envelope, and actually mail it. That meant there was a caring there that was nurturing, and it was exciting to get mail too and have it saved from Australia. It was just,
all of that. And that's cool to hear that, because I mean, we haven't spoken about that, but it was like, but the whole idea was too to honor everybody who had been a part of the classes and part of everything that was going on. with no, hey, if you buy this, you get this
Yeah.
free, or here's a discount code, or here's a whatever. It was just like, Merry Christmas, like
Yeah.
Happy New Year from us to you, and
Yeah.
just this real honoring. So, what I'm going to ask right now, too, is in your business and in your life, what if you could start to look at that? I mean, we are, heading on to Christmas. And it's like, what if you looked at Christmas in a really different way and you started to look at your clients and your friends and everyone around you in a different way? And what could you be that was honoring of you, your business, your service, your products, whatever it is, and also honoring of others that allowed that engagement that was different in the world?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Megan, I know that you've got next year, early next year, January. Highly recommend like jumping on some of Megan's telecalls that she does with this, with the what did you call it? The flirtation. I love the name.
Marketing, the flirtation of possibilities into reality.
Boom. I
That's
want to see this
Gary
little batting of
Douglas's.
the eyelids. Yeah, and the flick of the hair, and you're like, hey.
And that's, it's just, it's so fun on like, so I'll have start another like program up in January, but I did one about 2 years ago, and it was so fun because you have people from all different types of business. And so it gets to show you like, I've told a story. There was a guy on there who he couldn't do any types of advertising that you would normally do. So we talked about, going to parties and socializing, and it's fun to explore, different possibilities with business and creation, and maybe you just want to come on and learn how to flirt and get a date. Or I don't do online dating and flipping of the, screens, but we could figure that out, I'm sure too.
Left, right, left, right. And you just said something too, which I remember years ago being in Florida at a class, an Access class, and we were Access staff, and you were like, "Come on, let's go to the bar and socialize with everyone." And you were like, and even if it's like 30 minutes, and it was interesting because you got to see how grateful people were that we went to the bar and had a drink and socialized with everyone. We weren't excluding them. So it's like, it doesn't have to be this marketing campaign. It could just be, like you said, going to a party and having a chat, or just
And
literally
it,
talking to people.
and it goes back to that thing, where you were like, you didn't get how great your book is. And I remember that night because you're like, no, I don't. I was like, even if they just got to like have one drink with you and you were just there, like they would be so grateful. And you're like, really? Like, I'm not what?
I
But
know.
it's like, I think that so many people, especially when it's your creations or if it's something to do with you personally, you don't get how valuable that is to people and how they really, engage with who you are. And the businesses that have, you take a business or you take a book or whatever, the businesses and companies that have that level of engagement from every single person, in the company, which Access does, like that's the beauty. You get on the phone with somebody from customer service or whatever, everyone has this, like they love working with Access.
Yeah.
That's part of marketing too, because that's every interaction, every engagement is creating the future of that company. um, but you just never know. It's like, don't take for granted what the little things that you have, whether it's like you said, writing a handwritten note, or whatever creation that you have that's sitting there, like your book, both the Getting Out of Debt Joyfully as well, that book is so phenomenal. And it's like,
Okay, I'll acknowledge that today rather than rather than another 10 years.
it's like I tell people about that book all the time. And I think, and that's another thing, is if you have stuff that you have been, quote, marketing and whatever for years, never give up on it, because everything that you've done in the past is still generating and creating a future for that. Just add your energy to it every once in a while, and ask what it can contribute to where you're at now.
Yeah,
So
cool. Thank you. So, thank you so much for being on the show today, Megan.
you're welcome.
We
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. You can find Megan Hill on accessconsciousness.com, and we'll also have, all of her social media stuff, etc., in the show notes. And do you have a website as well?
Yeah, so the little marketing section, because it's little right now, because whatever, I'll get over myself eventually. I'm like, yeah, it's not that great, right? It's meganhillconsulting.com/marketing. So you can hear different clips from that marketing flirtation series I did too, if you want to play.
Okay, awesome. And we'll put that link in the show notes as well.
Well,
So
thank you.
again, Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming on. And you have a wonderful, wonderful evening because I know it's your nighttime and I think I was your last gig for today.
Yes.
And guys, if you also if you want to find out more about Access Consciousness, please go there, accessconsciousness.com. You can go to joyofbusiness.com as well. You can get the book. There's JCF, Joy Business Facilitators, all over the world. And
I
yeah,
have to
if
do a
you're
plug. If they haven't joined your membership program that's with this, I went on today because I had like 15 minutes before a meeting end and I saw you had just started. It's so awesome. So check it out if you guys haven't considered that. It's if you enjoy having Simone on here, it's like that plus next level. And
Thank you.
check it
Thank
out.
you, Megan. Thank you so much. And subscribe, share, review, do all that sort of stuff. Let's create a greater world for ourselves and for the entirety of the world with the choices that we make every day. So thank you so much, and I'll see you sometime. Sometime.
Somewhere, sometime.
I'm not saying when, but sometime soon. Thank you so much, Megan. Bye bye.
Bye.
If you're enjoying this podcast and have a question or topic you'd like me to address, please leave a review wherever you are listening. The best way for me to know what it is you want to hear about is to send in your questions, and we actually read all the reviews that come in. So let us know which episodes you loved and what you want to hear about next, right there in the podcast reviews. And thank you. Truly, truly grateful.